Week 3 of the Rugby World Cup brought us injury woes and intense action. When it's Mark, let's talk rugby. The first thing I want to talk about from this weekend is that injury to Dupont. Well, it wasn't the weekend, it was actually Wednesday, but this round, he got that fracture in his jaw through that head clash with Diesel. Diesel gets a yellow card. It gets upgraded to a red, rightly so. And, Dupont, he's had surgery. He's returning to the French squad just to be around the squad and then start some light training, I guess. And then what I'm hearing is that, he's kind of penciled in for a quarter-final return. Now, whether that happens or not, we won't be too sure until we get there. But hopefully he does come back. Because he's basically the poster boy of his home Rugby World Cup. He is the player of his generation, and for me, a Rugby World Cup is about seeing the best players in the world competing. I'm not one of these people that cares about we might meet France in a quarterfinal, so therefore I hope that he's injured. I don't like that. I don't want to be wishing ill on others. I'd rather lose to their best side than beat a weakened side and kind of scrape through against it. But I would obviously rather beat their best side if we played them in a quarterfinal. Ireland haven't made a quarterfinal yet, so that's another story. But I want to see the best players in the Rugby World Cup because it only comes around every 4 years, and some of the best players, that have played the game, they've had similar things where either they never got to play in a Rugby World Cup, or because unlucky with injuries or the team that they played for or whatever, and then you have all these good players who, every time we have a Rugby World Cup, some of the best players in the world miss out due to injury. The likes of, France lost Entamac, they lost Merchant, they lost, tons of great players who, we want them there to light up the World Cup because they bring in the moments of skill that will be replayed on, in YouTube clips and stuff like that for years to come. And we want more of that, not less of it. So, hopefully, Dupont, he recovers well and he does get back for that quarterfinal. And if they play beyond that, hopefully he's able to go on from there. That it's not just coming back and gone after 20 minutes or something. But yeah, wishing him well, and any players as well because he's not the only player who's gotten injured this Rugby World Cup. So hopefully any player that got injured, can recover and can maybe make at least another appearance for the side before the end. Won't be possible for some, but hopefully for most of them. Next thing I want to talk about is the other major casualty of this round of games, which is we've had our first major team, I think, eliminated, and that is Australia. They lost badly against Wales. They basically went out with a whimper, and it's a sad state of affairs. Eddie Jones, he's there apparently to build for the next Rugby World Cup, the home Rugby World Cup for Australia, but still, if I was an Australian fan, I would not want to see my team going out like that, and I don't see how that benefits Australia. I don't see how bringing young players over to play in a Rugby World Cup, like backing Carter Gordon and saying, listen, you're the only 10, you're my 10, you're going to be my 10 for years to come. And then, he gets hooked last round and then he gets dropped this round. And it's like, how is that benefiting Australian rugby? I just don't get it. So, I'm not sure what benefit there is to them at all from this, to be already out and have games left to play is very demoralizing. But hopefully they can kind of at least rally and produce a decent performance to kind of send themselves off. But yeah, it was like I'm kind of Australian rugby. It's something that that I have a lot of time for Australian rugby in terms of back, like it would have been what 20, kind of like the 2012 to 2016, around that kind of area, that kind of period of time. I used to be heavily involved in the Green and Gold Rugby, which is the main fan forum for Australian rugby, especially the Wallabies, but the Super Rugby franchises, etc. as well. So back then, I used to write Six Nations reviews and things like that of, whatever Six Nations games. Sometimes Ireland, or sometimes I pick up an Italy game or England or whoever. So I used to write those for the site. And, as part then, I'd be kind of posting daily on the site and chatting about stuff that was going on in Super Rugby. I was really into Super Rugby back then as well. So we would chat about that and how the Wallabies were going and how they could progress things for the future. And, from there, even then, like people were talking about, the Wallabies are going downhill, and, they're not really going in the right direction in terms of what's happening with Super Rugby and what's happening with the, I think is the NRC, something like that, the local league that they were setting up at the time, whether that was going to be good for or not. But I've got a lot of, because of that, you get to know people in terms of at least their online persona, and so have sympathy for those guys, how they must be feeling now. And, as an Ireland fan, I've been through it so many times at Ireland, and, I wouldn't wish those feelings on anyone else. So hopefully Australian rugby can sort things out. Personally, I believe that Australian rugby, what they need somebody to come from completely outside of Australia and look at things from a different perspective. Because the perspective they always look at is that Australia, you hear it all the time, Australia is the most competitive sports market in the world. They've got NRL, they've got AFL, got soccer getting better, and all these other things that they have to compete with. And therefore, it's very hard for rugby to compete. And that kind of drives that move to try and make rugby union more like rugby league, because from an Australian point of view, rugby league is the bigger sport and the one that to be looked up at and emulated. But from a global point of view, it's the other way around. Like rugby union is the bigger sport. And, if somebody came from outside maybe into the ARU and took them maybe in a different direction, I think maybe they could start turning things around. But again, it's just kind of sad that they're out here. The next thing then to talk about is the atmosphere at some of the games of the weekend, especially Ireland versus South Africa, was absolutely amazing. Every time I watch rugby, I want to be there in the stadium anyway. But that one made me think, like, I already know I can't go to this Rugby World Cup. I was planning to, but things didn't work out. So, but that one made me think, well, maybe if I did this and, scrape this money together here and that money together there, and if Ireland made it to a semi-final or a final, I could maybe go, and get a ticket from somewhere. And, that was just that feeling that I got from the atmosphere there, that it was just a yearning to be there. That was so strong that I had all these crazy plans going through my head about how I was going to get there. But it was amazing. And, it wasn't just the Irish fans, the box, they contributed to as well, and the local French and any neutrals in the crowd as well. And it's one of the great things about our sport, I think, is that, it's not like soccer where a lot of time fans, are kind of adversarial to each other. Rugby fans generally, you can just kind of mix together, and sometimes there will be a bit of banter back and forth, and now and again you get the odd person who's like a sore loser or whatever. But most of the time, if your team wins or loses, you beside someone in the stadium, you can wish them well for the rest of the games, or if you're in a pub together, you can enjoy a few drinks, argue about the game, or talk about other games and other what you like about this player or that player, and etc. And it's just a great kind of community, I think, to be in. And I hope that we keep that in rugby now that we have all this investment, funds and things buying into the game. Like they're not thinking about making things all jolly for fans. They're thinking about just milking it for money. So, hopefully we get more atmosphere like that at, other games as well through the tournament. I thought it was excellent. The next thing then that I want to talk about is we're just, going to have a chat about how each of the games went. We're not going to spend too long on them because, again, there is a review of every single game. There's a preview of every single game. I haven't done the Georgia versus Portugal one yet because I haven't watched the whole game in full. So I want to do that first, and then I'm going to do the review of that. That was the only game I wasn't able to do in full because I was at work at the time it was on. But all the others are done, and that one's going to be done as well. Maybe tomorrow. I'm not sure on that. But starting off this week, so we had France against Namibia. France almost get 100 points, and they came back with a bang. Great performance from them. Obviously that injury to Dupont we talked about, but France just back on it, being at their absolute best there. Namibia, obviously not great shakes. We've talked about them before, about how they've been let down by their own union, and the World Rugby had to step in. And, again, as a rugby world, I think we need to support nations like this a lot better, unions like this. And hopefully that happens in the future. Next then, Argentina 19, Samoa 10. So, Argentina, they remind me of Ireland of the early 2000s, where we would lose to England or somebody and we'd be absolutely slated. And then the players would have reactionary victory the next week and they'd play really well and they'd win. And then they'd go back to the old way the next game. And that's the way Argentina are too. And that's why I thought they were going to beat Samoa, even though going into the game, Samoa were looked the better team of the two. Like Argentina looked abject against England, not even being able to beat 14 men or even come close to it. And, Samoa looked really well in their opener against Chile. But I still had a feeling that Argentina would do it, and they did. Samoa, I feel sorry for them. I wanted them to win, but I just had a feeling that they wouldn't. But, we're seeing improvement from them still, and they're still not out of this. That pool there, England are through, but second place, or the other team at least going through with them, is still up for grabs. Obviously, Samoa will have to be England to do that, but hey, stranger things have happened. Next then, Georgia v Portugal. So again, I haven't seen the whole game, but what I've seen from it, like Georgia, they get out into a lead, and it looks like Georgia seem to have the wood over Portugal in recent years. The two of them, they've been that kind of second tier tournament below the Six Nations. They were both in the final of that together. Georgia won it well in the end, but Portugal, they dug in and they produced a great comeback. Then they got ahead. Georgia had to come back at them and level things up. And then Portugal had that kick right at the end that could have won it for them, but wasn't to be. But still, the draw is no bad result for them still, and they're showing people that, again, the potential that is there in our sport, and I think it's great. Next then, England 71, Chile 0. So England, something that even poor England teams are able to do is they're able to run up big scores, even when good Irish teams or Welsh teams or Scottish teams might struggle against a certain level of team. England always seem to be able to, well, for the most part at least, be able to put up a big score on them. And they did it in this one. We saw Aaron Dell getting 5 tries. We saw Marcus Smith being, really influential as well in the game. But still, it's Chile. And, when is Arundel going to be as good as that against, whoever the quarterfinal or possible semi-final opponents are? Probably not, but still, it asks the question, could he still do a job on the wing? I think the answer to that is yes. Like, the wingers that are in there now, like, Borthwick likes that style of winger where it's almost predictable, right? With the likes of May in there, and Marcus Smith and Arundel are maybe a little bit too much of loose cannons for him, but we'll see whether they get in there. But I don't think Arundel will have as much of an impact. But still, he's an elusive runner. He's got plenty of pace, and if you get him into space, he's going to make a break, and he's possibly going to score tries. So what's not to like is, as far as I see. Obviously, defensively is a different story, but it can't always be about defense. Chile, they've had some good performances in this World Cup. Patches didn't get a patch here. They tried to get a try, and it didn't work out for them. But still, again, kind of like Portugal, they're bringing a joy to the tournament and a kind of a freshness, and just reminding those of us who are used to seeing the same teams every time that rugby is beginning to grow, and teams are beginning to rise as well. And I'm all for it, really. Next then is the game probably of the tournament so far. South Africa 8, Ireland 13. So South Africa, were absolutely immense in that game, and I'm still, I don't know, because I was so focused on South Africa. Ireland were good too, but I was so focused on South Africa that part of Ireland's performance almost passed me by, if you like. There were some immense performances in there from Ireland too, but it was just the way South Africa took our line out away from us. They took the scrum away from us. They took the breakdown away from us. They slowed down our ball. They came smashing at our line, and somehow we held out. We adapted, and we found a way to get over that and to pull out a win. But again, take nothing away from South Africa, because that was an amazing performance from them. And it was just the fact that there was an equally amazing performance from Ireland too, to be able to respond to all of that. And you look at the world rankings, and sometimes we say that the world rankings don't really reflect reality. But I think having seen these two teams go like that at each other, they're definitely the top two teams in the world. I don't think there's any doubt about that at the minute. When we get into quarterfinals, there may be a bit more doubt when potentially you have the top four teams of the world going at each other, but that's for another day. Next then, Scotland 45, Tonga 17. So, really good from Scotland in this one. I thought Russell was excellent. Kinghorn was great too. The back row were excellent as well. Richie Gray, I thought, had a good game too. The scrum went well. Tonga, they did so well to get themselves back within 7 points, and then they had that, they basically had that opportunity to potentially, get back level, and then their line-out malfunctions just robbed them of that chance. Scotland then started to pull away, but credit to the two teams. This was a quality game to watch, and I think this weekend we had a lot of top quality stuff. We had some blowouts, but we've seen that in other weeks too. But yeah, decent game this one. Then the final one, then Wales 40, Australia 6. Australia, they were 7-6 down. They had a chance, 10-6 down, right? They had a chance to potentially kick for the post to make it 10-9. They went to the corner, and they didn't even win the line out, I think. And sometimes games just turn on incidents like that, and after that they never really got a chance, at least a realistic chance to come back at Wales, and Wales just pulled away. And again, we talked already about Australia and how poor they were, and how bad it is for them. But Wales, they're getting better all the way through, and you're looking at this now saying, okay, well, they're through to the quarterfinals now, pretty much, and now who are they going to play in that quarterfinal? It's probably going to be whoever finishes behind England in Group D, and that's another one where you have teams coming in and out of form. So again, I talked about it many times. Like Wales, they're probably on for a semi-final, not guaranteed, but they've a better pathway than most teams, I think, to a semi-final at this stage. So that's pretty much week 3. There was, I know before I started, there was another thing that I wanted to talk about, but it's gone completely out of my head. But so that, that's something to maybe for next week if I remember what it was. But, it's another great week of Rugby World Cup, and we've got now, 2 more weeks of the pool stages. And then when that's done, I think it's only 8 games left, right? Because you got the 4 quarterfinals, you got the 2 semi-finals, the 3rd place playoff, and the final. So that's 8. So, we need to enjoy the pools while we can, because this is the feast of rugby. And then we're going to have, like, the dessert will be like the top teams going against each other, but it's going to be over in a flash. So my advice to you would be, enjoy it while you can.